Derevi, Empyrial Tactician, is a very powerful band-colored commander that hails from the Commander 2013 Evasive Maneuvers Precon deck. For 3 mana, just 1 each of green, blue, and white mana, you get a 2/3 Flying Bird Wizard. Her powerful ability lets you put her from the commander zone directly into play. This does 2 things. It bypasses the commander tax that increases the cost to cast your commander for each time it returns to the command zone. This means at any point in the game, Derevi will only ever cost at most 4 mana. You will always have access to your commander with Derevi. There will be no point where it becomes too expensive to cast her because of the commander tax. The other thing she does well is evade counter spells. Since her ability merely puts her into play, she is not being cast. You can cast her, but using her ability to put her into play, you will avoid any counterspell your opponent may be holding. With the recent rule change permitting players to choose to return their commander to the command zone rather than tucking them back into the deck, all of the best strengths of Derevi have made her incredibly more powerful. You no longer have to worry about her being hit by a spell crumple and being stuck at the bottom of your library. As a result of her consistent power, she has been banned in competitive 1v1 Commander. But if you don't play competitive 1v1 Commander or your playgroup doesn't follow any specific ban list, you can play this amazing bird wizard without worry. So let's talk about some of the cards to consider for this deck. For this list we will be talking about in this video, we will be looking at a control-heavy build, using some lockdown cards to hinder your opponent's progress, while utilizing Derevi's untap ability to keep the board state under your control. We will be focusing on abusing the tap abilities, and a few nasty combos here and there that will give you a huge advantage. To start, one of the most potent combos this deck can do is go infinite with mana production. As a longtime fan of elves, being able to make a ton of mana is something I love to do, and Commander is just the format to do it in. The mighty Bloom Tender and Ashnod's Altar combo with Derevi will give us infinite colorless mana. We tap our Bloom Tender for both a blue, green, and a white mana, then sack our Derevi to Ashnod's Altar to give us 2 colorless mana. We then use one of those 2 mana, along with the mana produced by Bloom Tender, to put Derevi back into play using her ability. Upon entering the battlefield, we can use Derevi to untap the Bloom Tender, then rinse and repeat to your heart's desire, each cycle netting you 1 additional colorless mana. This is a great way to ramp up your colorless mana to pay for any X-cost spells you want to play, or to ramp up the necessary mana to play some of our bigger end spells. But what if we want colored mana? Well, I'm glad you asked. We run another infinite combo to ramp up our colored mana as well. Gilded Lotus and Deadeye Navigator also combo with Derevi to give us infinite colored mana. The Deadeye Navigator gives Derevi the ability to pay a generic mana and a blue mana to blink herself. Upon re-entering the battlefield, we untap the Gilded Lotus. We can then repeat the process again netting 1 mana of any color to our mana pool each time. We do need to tap for a few blue mana here and there to pay for the cost to blink Derevi, but otherwise, we can once again make a massive amount of colored mana. In this deck, much of the tap abilities that our cards have get much more use with Derevi being able to untap them multiple times. Arcanis the Omnipotent and Azami, Lady of Scrolls, both give us some powerful card draw. Captain Sisay allows us to tutor for any of our legendary cards at instant speed. Fauna Shaman allows us to tutor for any creatures at a small price of a single creature discard. To make even more use of our abilities, even on an opponent's turn, we have Seedborn Muse. This card has seen a massive increase in play with the recent banning of the Prophet of Kruphix. Even though the Prophet gave our creature cards flash, I still prefer the Muse as it untaps all of your permanents, including those that aren't lands or creatures. The next section we will cover is our control package. Your opponent's field is a threat to us and we must take steps to ensure they cannot get off the ground. Aven Mindcensor is one of my personal favorites, making cards like fetch lands and tutors effectively useless. This is a powerful card in other formats, but I think it's most effective in Commander, as being able to only look at the top 4 cards of your library when you're searching for a card, rather than the whole library, can be devastating. Grand Abolisher will ensure that your turns will go off uninterrupted by your opponents. Meekstone will shut down any decks that get big creatures out to swing. Anything with 3 power or greater can't untap. Unless your opponent has given their board state Vigilance, they won't be attacking with anything but their tiniest of creatures. And if they do have something that we need to shut down, we can just tap it down with Derevi's ability. Along the same lines, we have Winter Orb. A lot of players hate this card in Commander for how badly it slows down decks. But being in green and having access to a great deal of mana ramp and mana dorks and untap abilities, we really don't need our lands after we get a few dorks and rocks out. Oblivion Stone is a great way to destroy your opponent's field, as it also nixes off planeswalkers and their creatures. This can also be used in conjunction with our infinite mana combos to use over and over to put enough fate counters to protect our permanents, then blow up the rest of the field. Aura Shards can also clear up artifacts or enchantments our opponents put out with the repeated usage of Derevi entering the battlefield. Nature's Will is an all-star in this deck, being able to give us any of our lands back in one attack. This works around us being hindered by our Winter Orb while tapping down and effectively locking down your opponent's lands. As a side strategy, this deck also includes Birthing Pod. The thing I love about this deck is its ability to tutor for just about anything we need for relatively cheap. We can use cards like Harmonic Sliver to come out and get their End of the Battlefield ability off, and then immediately sack into the Birthing Pod to go for something even bigger. We can work our way up the mana curve easily with this to our top creature, the Craterhoof Behemoth, for a massive endgame win con. See, unlike Refuge of the Many, who likes one creature to attack alone just to trigger that Exalted, with Derevi, we're all in offensive. We're always going to want as many creatures as can attack to attack. The more creatures that attack, the more triggers we can get off of Derevi's ability. The mana base for this deck can be as complex as you can afford. Being in Blanche 3 colors, we need blue, white, and green mana. So like every multicolored commander deck, you want your shock lands, fast lands, fetches, and so on in order to smooth your mana out as best as possible. The Signets and Chromatic Lantern function as more mana rocks to produce mana when we have our other lands tapped down. Derevi has made herself quite at home as the go-to commander for combos in Bant colors, with the ability to untap and tap permanents, cheat herself into play, control the board state, and given a pretty interesting typing as a bird wizard, she is a powerful choice for a commander deck. So if you're picking up the Commander Anthology next year, be sure to give Evasive Maneuvers a try and see what she can do. I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to like, share, and comment on this video. And if you're new to the channel, I hope you consider subscribing today.